Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about Extreme Ownership, a book on leadership written and narrated by two ex-US Navy SEALs and now leadership consultants Jocko, Willink and Leif, Babin. I'm going to be discussing the audiobook and also how you can apply the ideas that Jocko and Leif share to playing PUBG, of course, and that's going to include the team modes of duos and squads you'd expect, but also really, for me especially, how you can apply these learnings in solos. So I want to first start by saying that Extreme Ownership is a good read or a good listen, depending whether you want to go for the normal book or the audiobook, whether you're into management or leadership books or not. The stories and lessons that Jocko and Leif write and talk about are entertaining, educational and at times very moving. Each chapter follows a similar format where either Jocko or Leif relate an actual combat or training story, usually from their time fighting in Iraq, and then they discuss the principle they learn from that experience, and then they talk about the practical applications of those learnings in a business environment. The true stories themselves give an insight into the US Navy SEALs fighting in Iraq and the sheer amount of on-the-job training that needed to be done. It's all about the way that Jocko and Leif had to adapt what they had learnt previously to meet the demands of the different situations and environments they now found themselves in. And these war stories are as exciting as any you'll ever have read. But it's probably the honesty where Jocko and Leif recognise their weaknesses with the mistakes they may have made or the mistakes they could have made, and how they then have to change their behaviours to safeguard the lives of their colleagues to get the job done, which is the thing that for me really sets this book apart. Now, the principles that follow from the stories are interesting, but it's probably the practical applications that are the most fascinating parts of the book. Jocko and Leif now have a management leadership consultation business called Echelon Front, and this is where they take ex-military leaders like themselves with combat experience into businesses, and then they run workshops and give lectures on their leadership techniques and how companies can then train their staff and their managers to use them as well. And I think that no matter what you do in life, who you work for, or even if you're self-employed, or even if you don't have a job at the moment, the stories that they share about how extreme leadership principles were applied in real-life business situations and the positive results that came from those, they will ring true all the way through the book. You'll be thinking, gosh, I've been in, or I've seen a similar situation to that. Maybe you're in similar situations to these right now, and you'll think, well, actually, yeah, I could apply what Jocko and Leif are saying to my life, to my business, to my personal life even right now. So, as you can tell, I think that the book's a really good read or a good listen, but you're probably wondering what exactly is extreme ownership and how can I apply it to my life, to my job, and of course, how could I apply it to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds? Well, and forgive me for the way that I'm kind of summarising this, but extreme ownership is a change in attitude to one where you, or we take full responsibility for the situation and environment we're in. We take full responsibility for the tasks and challenges that we have before us, and we take full responsibility for the resources at our disposal. So let's take a simple example. So say you wanted to get a bit fitter, but regular exercise is something that you've struggled with all your life. Maybe you've got a really busy family life. You've got a tiring job that takes up most of your day. Maybe you've got some fun hobbies and seemingly not enough time in the day or money to spend on equipment or gym membership. With extreme ownership, you'd recognise that your responsibilities to your family and job are paramount. But if you allow yourself to remain unhealthily, you aren't doing any of those things favours in the long term. You'd say to yourself, well, this is up to me. I need to find time by getting up earlier in the morning, or cutting back on my hobbies, or watching a little less TV, or browsing the web a little less. And, I need to put on my running shoes and start now. let's take a work example, say where you've got to deal with someone of equal rank in another part of the company you work for, but there's a problem. You need to work with this person, but they're known for being a prickly customer. Maybe they're difficult to get on with. They're really sure of their own ideas, but critical of everybody else's. However, the task you've been given is important to the company, so you need to work together. With extreme ownership, you'd take a humble but professional approach. You'd try to see everything that was happening from the other person's perspective, and you would make it your responsibility to build a working relationship with them. You'd be the one responsible if you two couldn't work together. You wouldn't blame it on the other person. It would be your fault, not theirs. And this forces you to then think long and hard about how to build that relationship and how to then act on it. And the book is full of much better examples than mine, and I've barely scratched the surface, but hopefully I've given you a good idea of what extreme ownership is all about. So I thought what we could do next is I'll go through the chapters of extreme ownership and try applying those ideas from those chapters into certain principles that we could use in PUBG. So let's start off with the first one, Chapter 1, Extreme Ownership. Basically, extreme ownership means the leader must accept that he is truly and ultimately responsible for everything. So, if you're in a squad and you're the squad leader in PUBG, if your team don't win, right, that's your fault, right? And you take responsibility for that. You don't blame other people. So, you don't blame other people's shortcomings for things that they may well have done wrong. What you would do is you would say you had a team member who wasn't a very good shot, for example. And it meant that they missed a few shots, which that meant, say, a couple of your squad members got killed, which meant you didn't do well in the game. You wouldn't blame them and say, this is your fault, you've got a rubbish shot. What you would do is you would think about ways that maybe you could help your teammate, your friend probably, in order to become a better shot in PUBG, and then suggest ways of doing that in a humble way that would lead to the person actually doing it. So that's quite a strong idea, because we know one of the big reasons, and I'm sure you've been in that situation before, is when you're in squads and you may well be friends with people, but you all start arguing with each other and start blaming each other, and instead of offering constructive feedback, it tends to be, well, why did you do this? We would have won if you'd done this. And that makes you not want to play with those people again, does it? You think, oh, this isn't any fun. And we know that if you have a good squad where you can give each other constructive criticism and you can support each other, that team is more likely to play together for longer, which means you will then become a much more effective team as well. So, it's quite interesting. Now, the other side of that is that, say you were doing solos, you say, well, wait a minute, how can I be the lead? How can I take responsibility for everything? Well, what that means is that, and this applies to squads and duos as well, but when you're playing as a solo and you've got to recognise that you're truly responsible for everything, it means you can't blame the game or what other players do on what happens in the game. If you lose, it's your fault. Okay? So you can't say, well, I lost that game because I got a bad circle. No, you lost that game because you didn't put yourself into a position where you could then move and make that circle better for you. And you might say something like, well, I lost that game because I couldn't find a 4x scope. I had to use an 8x scope, and I'm not that good with the 8x scope. Instead of saying that, you would say, well, actually, what I should have done and what I should do is I should go to the practice range and I should practice with an 8x scope. In fact, I should practice with all of the scopes until I'm better with them. So if I'm in that situation again, I will then be able to win. And none of the things that you'll learn in extreme ownership, none of this is brand new. This is all available in different sort of books and audio books and lectures and on the internet, and is common sense as well, a lot of it. But what's really nice about the way that Jocko and Leif do it is they kind of bring it all together in a really entertaining way, because it is an entertaining read. So let's go on to the next chapter. Chapter 2. There's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And the example that they give in the book is one where in SEAL training, when they're going through the BUDS, the basic underwater demolition something training, they split the new recruits into squads. And there's an example where there's a squad that's always first and there's a squad that's always last. And so what they do is they swap the leaders about. So they put the squad leader who is on the first team to the squad team that keeps coming last, and vice versa. And then what happens is, in the next races, when they're racing these boats up and down in the sea, the team that was last now comes second, and then and then wins the next one. And they're just showing that, look, it wasn't. The difference was the person who was leading the squad, not the squad itself. It was the changes he made in terms of telling people what to do, motivating people, disciplining people in a good way, in a nice way. And what this means is for squads is, again, it's really coming back to ownership again, but recognise the fact that if you have a particular group of players that you're playing with as a squad, then, if most of them aren't crack shots, and maybe aren't that good at close quarters combat, as the squad leader, you shouldn't be saying, come on, let's drop hot at Pachinki. You should be playing the edge more, and doing things like that. And then you should be working on that accuracy, encouraging people to train and stuff like that. And it would mean that as you are progressing through the map, if you were the squad leader, again, it would be a case of not putting your squad in a situation where they wouldn't be able to excel. So again, if people aren't that good at shooting, when there's some gunfire over the hill, you don't want to be saying, come on then, let's all dive in there and let's go and third party these people. You should maybe be thinking, okay, well, let's move away from this situation to a safer position. Or you could well say to them, you could say something like, look guys, I know we're not very good at this, at third partying people, but why don't we get some practice in, and we're going to third party these other teams, we'll get involved in the fight, we're probably all going to die, but we're going to get some practice in and we'll be better for the next game. That sort of thing. Not bad teams, only bad leaders. Chapter 3, believe. Now, this is really important. So a leader must truly fully believe in the mission to convince and inspire his team. And obviously in duos and squads, what this means is when you're playing with other players, your friends or random people, believe that you can win. If you start off with the attitude of, well, we're not going to win this anyway, I'm just going to get in there and get some kills, I don't really care what happens, that's probably what's going to happen. And that's going to come across in your voice, the body language of your character as you're moving around in the map, because you won't really care, so you won't really be that careful. You won't have good noise discipline and things like that. Whereas, if you're like, no guys, we can do this. We've come closer to doing it before. We've done it before. This is our favourite map, and we can do it. And that applies to solos as well. If you go into a solo match thinking, oh god, say example in this case, oh it's Miramar, god I don't win on Miramar very often, chances are you probably won't, because when you get into a sicky situation, you'll probably do something silly, you'll kind of give up, you won't keep pushing towards the enemy or pushing for the win. And so, always believe in the mission. Chapter 4 is check the ego. Ego is a big threat to top performance. And the most challenging ego to deal with is your own. Be confident, not cocky. Solos, this affects me a lot in solos. For example, if I've just got a win, I've got a chicken dinner, and then I go and play another game, chances are I will do something stupid in that next game, where I'll push a fight where I didn't have the advantage, or I'll decide to drop hot somewhere where I'm not really used to it, where I don't really know the map very well. And now generally I'll be overconfident instead of being, I'll be cocky instead of just being confident in my skills. Because you don't want to be nervous. It's good to have some nerves and to understand that what you're doing is difficult and is going to be a challenge. But you always want to be confident that, right, I'm going to go for this headshot and I'm going to hit this guy in the head. And if you tell yourself that, you've got much more chance of doing this. And when you're going into duos and squads, obviously if you've got a team leader who has got a big ego and believes that they're better than they really are, the other players are going to know that anyway. because they play with you. These are probably your mates you're playing with, and you're going to put them in situations where they're probably going to not excel. So mate, that could be hot dropping somewhere when they're not used to it. It could be that you'll do something where you'll say split your squad up, which can be very bad sort of in the medium to late game, where maybe you'll run off by yourself to engage somebody without waiting for the squads to come and back you up, and you'll get yourself into trouble and you'll die. Or you'll move away and they'll get into trouble when they need you and they'll die. So, check that ego. Chapter 5 is cover and move. And it's a fundamental tactic for, moving around the battlefield. We know that, so if you've got two people, one of them fires suppressively, fire where the other guy moves, and that guy's behind cover and he fires where the other guy moves. So you can use that through the map. But extreme ownership, this isn't a tactical guide to PUBG. This is more of an attitude guide to leadership. So what it means is working together. So it's simple things like when you're playing as squads and duos, stick together when you drop, if you're dropping hot. And then as you move along, always make sure that you're there, you're within helping distance. If somebody says, on me, or they come under fire, you're not like 200 meters away, so it takes you 3 minutes to get you. So by the time you got there, they've got into a gunfight, they've been killed, and they've been thirsted, and they're then dead. Always be thinking about that, The sum is greater than the parts when you're playing PUBG with a squad. When you've got a squad of people, say you've got 4 or 3, you've got four sets of eyes, 4 sets of ears. You can be looking all around, and the squad that works together and fights together is more likely to win. And also, the squad where everybody gets to the end is more likely to win as well. So again, that's coming back to the leadership type of it, making those decisions, which is going to make your squad be able to get to that final circle with all 4 of you there. Because if you get into a situation where it's 4 versus 3 or 4 versus 2, chances are you're going to get that chicken dinner. Whereas if you're not working together and you're getting split up and you're losing one or maybe another member and you're down to 2 people, or God forbid you're down to 1 person, the chances of you actually winning a chicken dinner then become really low. You could say that in solos, is there really a place for cover and move? Me. Very bad. How do you cover yourself? Well, you could say that maybe using smoke grenades when you're in a sticky situation could be very, very useful indeed. So, as you're coming into the final circles, or any situation where somebody's firing at you and you don't know where they are and you need to move away, drop some smoke grenades. Chapter 6, simple. And the idea of this is simplicity is the key to success, because people don't understand complicated plans and orders. So in PUBG, again in squads, it's just all about, right guys, we're playing on Sanhok, we're going to Mong Nai. I'm going to start at the far eastern end by the sea. You guys start at the other end, closer to the land, and then we'll meet in the middle. Let's go. Let's say when you're driving around, or somebody's driving and you're on the passenger seat, instead of going left, go left, go right, do this, do that. Put a marker down on the map so they can just follow one of the simple markers as they're driving around. And again, when you're playing by yourself, when you're playing as solos, a lot of the time, if you have a simple plan of going from A to B, say avoiding things like going into houses where people might be camping, avoiding those those hot spots where people could be, avoiding those choke points at the map where people get attracted to, then you're more likely to be able to proceed through the game and get into that chicken dinner situation. Chapter 7 is prioritize and execute. And this is all about, in the fog of war, if you try and deal with too many tasks at the same time, it's impossible, and you'll probably fail. So a good example of this would be when you're playing solos and you're running in and you're in the blue. All right, so you're taking damage, and then you see another player off to your right who's running through the blue as well. What do? Do you engage them in a firefight, or do you keep going and do you get safe? Because if you stop to try and engage them in a firefight, you're going to keep taking damage, they're going to stop, they're going to start shooting at you. Also, there's a chance that somebody else might third party you as well when they hear your gun going off. So often it's the case, right, my priority at this moment is getting safe and not taking damage from the blue. Let's do that, let's get safe, then let's engage the enemy. Another example of that could be, you're in a squad, you're in a house, and you see some guys in a field quite a long way away, so you all start firing at them. But the blue's coming in fairly soon. In the next 30 seconds you're going to have to move. So as the squad leader, it's very important that you're keeping an eye on the clock and you're going, right guys, right, our priority now isn't killing those guys, they're not a threat to us. What is a threat to us is getting caught in the blue and taking lots of damage. Let's get into the vehicle and let's go. And often in PUBG, whether it's solos, duos or squads, prioritising and executing is really about moving to good positions. So you could be in a situation where you've gone to the safe side of the circle and you're in the circle, you're safe, but you're right on the edge, say. And then sometimes it's a case of looking at the minimap and going, well actually, we don't know where the circle's going to move next to, but we're pretty sure that it's going to move away from us. Why don't we move early and get to that compound there where it will be safer? And let's do that. Chapter 8, Decentralized Command. Humans generally cannot manage more than 6 to 10 people, and that's all the truer when things start going wrong. So what they talk about here is the fact that you never want to be in a situation, say in PUBG, where people are always asking you what to do, what should we do next, where do we want to go. Now this is more than likely going to happen when people are a bit pissed off at you, and you keep telling people what to do, and kind of to spite you, they'll then won't do anything and you tell them to do it, because they kind of want you to fail. So in this kind of idea, it's you need to be able to trust that your teammates, if they decide to do something, you know, to go and investigate something or to engage in a firefight, that they will do so with skill, and they'll do so in a situation where they won't put themselves and won't put the rest of the squad under threat. It doesn't apply that much, to be honest, in PUBG, because there's only 4 of you in maximum, isn't there, in squads. But yeah, I guess if you were playing like war mode or one of the custom modes, when they were, you know, maybe had a squad of 10 or something, it could really happen. And solos, you don't really have decentralized command because there's only you. So, chapter 9, plan. A leader must first understand himself and the overall mission. So this is again is when you first start the game, whether you're in solos, duos or squads. Have a look at the map. Think about, right, okay, what's the flight path? What type of drop do we want to do? Are we going to drop hot? Are we going to drop far? And then once you're on the ground and you're looting up and you see the first circle appear, then just say to yourself, okay, what's our plan? Where are we going to go next? Are we going to play the centre, or are we going to play the edge, or maybe a combination of those? And then make it simple and then communicate those to your squad so you can go on. And solos is exactly the same. You know, you just plan, right, what's my next move? Because if you've got a certain plan saying, right, I'm going to go from where I am now and I'm going to go over to that high ground over there, if you just say, right, that's what I'm going to do, if things start to go wrong while you're doing it, you know, you're having to engage with people and deal with the grenades and all this sort of stuff and deal with healing, you've still got that simple plan in your head that you can just execute and do it. Because there's nothing worse than kind of just not doing anything and being caught, say, in the blue or being caught by the people. Chapter 10, leading up and down. A leader takes responsibility for leading not just his subordinates but also his superiors. Now, this kind of applies in PUBG where you're not the leader of the squad, so you're not the one who's giving the orders about where you should be going. This is how you would then interact with that leader to make suggestions that would help them achieve their goal, which is to win, you know, a chicken dinner. So this is not about not being sarcastic, but being humble is a good way of putting it, and being constructive with suggestions. So it could be, for example, that say you're in that example again where you're fighting away in this house and you're shooting at people, and your squad leader kind of hasn't noticed the fact that the clock's ticking and the blue's about to come in. So this would be a case where you go, oh guys, you know, oh, have you seen the fact that, you know, we've got 10 seconds before the blue comes in and we've got to move, you know, and then your squad leader will go, oh right, brilliant, yeah, we need to move, right, let's get in the vehicle and let's go. Or pointing out the fact that, oh, by the way, there's a team, you know, 180 south, just on those rocks. I don't know whether you've seen them. All right, and they do that as well. But doing it in a way that kind of is supportive of the squad leader, and doesn't. You're not trying to be, not trying one-upmanship on them either. Chapter 11: Decisiveness and uncertainty. Intelligence and research are important, but you've got to be realistic about it. Waiting to be 100% sure about something often leads to indecision and inability to execute. So again, this is often about making decisions about what to do when you've got limited information about about what's happening in a situation. So we'd all really like a situation where you looked at your minimap and you could see all the enemies, see where they are, where they've dropped and where they're going to. We would like that. We don't have that situation, do we? But you've still got to make your plan, and then you've still got to act on it. So let's say as a squad or a solo, you're in a vehicle and you come up to a compound of houses. If you see some of the doors are open, you can then say, right, okay, let's keep on going, let's go past. Or you could say, well, okay, the doors are open, there could be someone here, so what we're going to do is we're going to assault these houses. Even though we don't know if anybody's in, we're going to throw grenades through the windows, and then we're going to go in that way. And what you're doing as well is you're avoiding that situation where you're being completely passive in a situation, where you're thinking, oh, you're on the edge of the circle, the blue's coming in, you're going to get caught on the edge, we don't know where the other players are, what are we going to do? Well, then you could think, well, where did we last hear gunfire? Right, that was over there. All right, well, tell you what, let's not go there. Let's go over there. There might be players there, but we're going to make a decision and we're going to act on it. And then you've got to be able to trust the players you're playing with that will be able to engage any enemies you come across to the best of their ability. And if they don't, if you die, I mean, what the hell? It's been a little bit of fun, and you go in again. And then finally, we have chapter 12. We have the dichotomy of leadership. Where Leif and Jocko, they kind of list what the characteristics of a good leader are. So you've got to be confident but not arrogant, brave but not a daredevil, strive to win but be gracious in loss. You've got to be detail orientated but not obsessive. You've got to be a leader, but you need to follow where needed. You've got to be quiet but not always silent. You've got to be logical but not without emotions. You've got to be close with the people you're playing with. Well, close with soldiers, but nobody's more important than another of the team or the team as a whole. You've got to be not so chummy as they forget who's the leader. You've got to use extreme ownership, but then exercise decentralized command. And as a leader, you have nothing to prove, but everything to prove at the same time. Now, some of those are quite highfalutin, aren't they? You might think, oh god, this is only a video game. But hopefully, listen to those, you'll think, oh right, yeah, I could, quiet but not always silent. So yeah, I can understand that, because in PUBG, for example, noise discipline is really important, because if everybody's being noisy, you can't hear that team who are trying to creep up on you or just driving up on you. Confident but not arrogant. Again, you don't want to be in a situation where, oh yeah, I'm the best, yeah, I shot those guys, I've got us the chicken dinner. Brilliant. It should be a case of, well done everybody, we got that chicken dinner together. Or, hey, no problems chaps, we didn't get it that time, we came close, let's have another go. So hopefully you can see how the ideas and principles behind extreme ownership, they can be applied outside of the personal business world and also into the world of PUBG. Excuse me while I take a quick drink. But what I don't want you to do is, I don't want to think that I'm disrespecting the teachings of Jocko and Leif by applying their blood-earned lessons to such a trivial subject as a video game, because I think that by applying extreme ownership in one sense or another to PUBG, you're really going to learn to apply it in your real lives, in our real lives, in my real life as well, because there's lots of really good lessons to learn here. And I think that the book Extreme Ownership, whether it be the audiobook or the paperback or the hardback, it deserves a place next to the leadership and management standards such as 1 Minute Manager and 7 Habits for Successful People. Again, there's nothing completely new here, but the way that these ideas are put together and the stories and the principles and the practical applications really makes it very, how can I put it, it makes it work, I think, in lots of real life situations. And I think it's a really good read or listen for everyone, even if you're not really into your leadership or your management books. So there we go. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Highly recommended. Whew, right, okay, that's quite a long book review, isn't it? So, that's enough from me. Remember, if you've enjoyed the video, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. If you've got any questions and comments about this or any of the other subjects on my channel, Jocko, Willink, Leif, Babin, Extreme Ownership. Please put them down below. If you fancy supporting the channel, there's always the Patreon link as well. And what I'll do is I'll just leave you with the last few minutes of this chicken dinner, and well, I'll see you again soon.